The village by the river, seemingly not far from the city, but giving the impression of some wild place where life stopped in the distant past century. Now it's the home of the city girl, Juliana. Where else could she go after her mother died, and her good-for-nothing stepfather managed to drink away everything, gaining ownership of the apartment and promptly turning it into a drinking den? That is, of course, until he got swindled. He was left without money, and she and Juliana without a home. Of course, the fate of her former stepfather was of least interest to her, but she had to take care of her own. Friends and acquaintances were all urging her. Your only way now, Juliana, is to marry any man with an apartment. And even candidates for this marriage began to be pushed onto her. But Juliana understood, such a path was not for her at all. I mean, getting married is not that difficult, but to live constantly in a dependent position, fearing that either you won't please him or simply love will fade away. And where will you end up again? On the street? Well, if alone, that's one thing, but if, God forbid, with children? No, she wasn't used to relying on anyone, so she had to find a way out of this situation on her own, but she had little strength left. Finding a job without education was practically impossible, and Juliana, tired of moving from one rented corner to another, from dormitories where they kicked you out at the first missed payment, got fed up with it all and decided to act differently. She got a job at the fish market with fishmongers, but unfortunately, they didn't provide housing there. Renting, overpaying huge sums, begging, and humiliating herself got old. That's how she ended up in this little village. There were only about a dozen houses there. Half of them had long been abandoned, overgrown with weeds taller than the roofs. Juliana decided, why not occupy one of the houses? Well, even if the owners show up and demand their houses back, she'll leave, but for now, it's better for them. She'll keep an eye on the house and tidy it up a bit. She chose a small and quite sturdy abandoned house nearby, with a whole roof and an uncollapsed porch, clearly long abandoned, but there was a lived-in house nearby. Juliana turned to the landlady with a question. Hello. Tell me, does anyone live in the house next to yours? The thing is, I have nowhere to live. I thought, maybe I could stay there for a while. The neighboring landlady was even delighted. And why not? There lived Grandma Isa, she was old already, died. And she never really had any relatives, so move in and live. We're glad here that there'll be one more person in the whole village. And here I live, and there are about 5 people. What's the big deal? In the summer, of course, sometimes people come, but not very often. And Isa's house is not needed by anyone. Take it. So Juliana settled in this village house. True, she didn't plan to take care of the farm. Firstly, she simply didn't know how, and secondly, there was no time. She only needed the house to spend the night. She was exhausted from work, dealing with this fish. Sometimes she had to clean it, sometimes gut it. She stank all over. You can't rinse off the scale from your hair. Every evening she tried to tidy herself up a bit, and after that, all that remained was to fall asleep. But the places here were beautiful, picturesque, and she really chose a nice house. Even the stove worked, and the same neighbor Aunt Maria helped her delight it, as Juliana herself couldn't. Of course, she didn't plan to live there her whole life. She dreamed that someday she would save up enough money and buy herself at least a small room, but in the city, even without any special conveniences, but her own. And she wouldn't depend on any husbands or other owners. She'd be the mistress herself. And then she could get married, not for housing, but for completely different reasons, like normal people get married, well, for love. However, for now, judging by everything, buying housing was far off, which meant everything else was just in dreams. But there wasn't much time for dreaming. Really, at work, there was constant noise, clamor, the bosses yelling, and that disgusting smell of fish, drowning out all thoughts in her head. At home, fatigue didn't allow her to indulge in dreams. There, the only desire was to lie down, stretch out tired legs. So, the only opportunity to calmly think, to imagine her future happy life, was the road from work home. Juliana walked without sparing her legs. Besides, there was no transport to their village, no one to ride. And she didn't shorten the path. She walked not on the highway, but along the river, past a small bridge. It was beautiful and peaceful there. The breeze blew, refreshing her mind, cooling her inflamed skin, and the river murmured, echoing her sweet dreams. But one day, on this beloved road of hers, she had to become a witness and then a participant in a strange event. She was almost home, passing by the bridge, and saw a stranger lying on the bank in a wet dress. A young man in a handsome suit leaned over her. They looked like a bride and groom. Most likely, that's who they were, but why was the bride in the water and what happened next? Did the groom pull her out? Although he was mostly dry. Maybe just his legs got a little wet. The groom leaned over the girl, who either lost consciousness or was already dead, and clearly didn't know what to do. What happened? Juliana ran up to them. We were riding. She accidentally fell into the water. The young man muttered in confusion, clearly not expecting to see anyone here. I don't even understand if she's dead or not. Blanca? Blanca? He called out, but didn't touch the girl. Juliana, pushing him away, knelt next to the bride and touched her neck. There's a pulse, so she's alive. Of course, she had no education, but Juliana's mother was a nurse, and she somehow taught her daughter some simple skills, confident that someday it would definitely come in handy. It came in handy today. Juliana quickly cleared the airways of water, performed artificial respiration, and the unfortunate girl, coughing, came to. Well, everything seems to be okay. She needs to go to the hospital now. Just to check. I think that. She looked at the young man and hesitated. He should be happy that the bride is alive, but in his eyes, there was only disappointment and annoyance. However, seeing that the rescuer was looking at him, he quickly came to his senses, changed his facial expression to joyful. Oh, alive. What a relief. Blanca, I was so scared for you. He exclaimed, somewhat falsely. Meanwhile, the drowned woman coughed, caught her breath, but looked at her groom with a strange look. She sat up, but didn't reach out to the guys. On the contrary, she recoiled from him, leaned towards Juliana, and pleaded. Save me from him, take me away from here, please. Are you crazy, Blanca? Muttered the guy. Let's go home. You actually need to see a doctor. And we'll have the wedding another time, it's not a big deal. Get out of here right now, murderer. The girl struggled to get up from the ground and pleaded with Juliana again. Please, help me get away from him. He wanted to kill me. You're a crazy fool. Why did I even get involved with you? Who's going to kill you? Who needs you for 100 years? The groom hissed indignantly and, turning around, dashed to his car, parked a little further away. Juliana didn't understand anything. What happened here? However, it seemed that she needed to help this girl somehow. All right, let's go, she said. I live nearby. You seem to need to change clothes, warm up, and no one will bother you there. Let's go. The girl got up and followed Juliana, stumbling in the long hem of her dress, when suddenly she stopped, sat back on the ground, and burst into bitter tears. What happened? I stopped understanding everything here, Juliana asked. I don't understand anything myself. How could he? Especially on such a day. Why? Cried the bride. Okay, that's enough. Let's go home. Don't sit on the ground, it's still cold, Juliana persuaded the girl. You need to warm up, calm down. And then you can tell everything, and we'll think together. Maybe we'll come up with something. Or you can go to the police. Thus, comforting the would-be drowned woman, Juliana brought her to her shelter, helped her change into dry clothes, put her to bed, then made coffee. And only after calming down a bit, the guest told what happened by the river. Can you imagine, we got married today? We were on our way to the wedding, to the banquet. The guests are sitting there, waiting, probably still not understanding why we're not there yet. And I myself didn't understand why instead of going to the restaurant, he took me to the river, to this completely stupid, uninteresting place. But he said he really wanted to have our photo taken in this place on this day. It meant something to him, he said. Turns out, he wanted to kill me. Are you sure he wanted to kill you? Juliana asked in horror. Maybe it was just an accident? You can't imagine how happy I would be if I could believe that, but it's not an accident. He pushed me. He pushed me into the river with his own hands. And not just pushed, but also said goodbye, swim a little. Can you imagine? Knowing that I can't swim. No, I can't imagine, Juliana said, shaken. It was really hard for her to imagine that a person could be so vile. Well, neither could I. But now I perfectly understand that you shouldn't trust scoundrels. But why did he do that? You got married, after all. It means he had feelings for you, and maybe he still does. Exclaimed Juliana. Oh, he did, all right, the girl smirked. He loved my money very much, you know? Are you very wealthy then? Juliana asked, unable to comprehend how wealthy one must be to be so cruelly targeted for murder on their wedding day. Well, it depends on what you're comparing it to. If it's with you, then fabulously wealthy. If it's with him, still wealthy. He's nothing on his own. But don't be offended, Juliana, by what I'm saying. I can see it's a bit humble here for you. But I'm not proud. Rather, I envy you. At least you're self-sufficient, as far as I understand. You live in the countryside, work, take care of yourself, and don't pretend to be anything. But he, this husband, Carlos his name is, loved pretending to be a wealthy man. And this murder would have given him such an opportunity. At least, that's what he decided. I myself don't quite understand why he needed to do it like this, on our wedding day. Maybe to divert suspicion? And then, killing you after some time would probably be too suspicious. But this way, well, people would sympathize with him even more, Juliana speculated. Maybe so. Anyway, I don't know, Juliana. I don't know. The fact is, he brought me to this bridge, put me near the railing, told me to strike a beautiful pose. He moved away to choose the angle, and then crept up, approached as if to fix something. And Blanca covered her face with her hands, tears choking her again. Listen, calm down. It all ended well, after all, Juliana tried to reassure her. Well, much better. I hadn't even gotten married yet, and I'll have to get divorced. Oh, come on. People will understand everything perfectly. And you need to report him to the police. It can't be left unpunished. Of course. I'll deal with it tomorrow morning. I have no strength left now. Can I stay overnight at your place? Of course. Besides, how are you going to go home now? Probably, someone should come for you. Do you have parents? Juliana asked. I have no one, they're all dead. Well, of course, there are various friends. Someone will come, bring clothes. I can't walk around in a wedding dress after this. I decided to burn this cursed dress altogether, or do you want it for rags? What? No, I don't need that. If you think so, then burn it. The stove is heating up. Although maybe it's better in the yard? It's synthetic after all. There will be a smell, and it might melt. This conversation comforted both of them a little, and in the end, they even laughed a little. Then Juliana told her story, and they went to sleep. The cell phone in this remote village, of course, had no signal. Juliana lent Blanca her clothes, and they walked to a more civilized place, from where the wealthy bride called her friends and asked them to pick her up. Well, Juliana, I think I'll be of use to you somehow, Blanca said. I don't know how much you enjoy living the way you do, but I'm sure you deserve better. I don't even know what I deserve, but I've always relied only on myself, Juliana replied, so I don't expect any special help from anyone. But still, maybe you'll give me some advice. Possibly. No, you must call me. And we must meet someday, said Blanca. She, of course, went to the police when she returned to the city, but it was too late. Her fiancé, realizing that he would have to answer for his deeds, had already disappeared, and he was declared wanted. Juliana felt embarrassed to call the woman she saved after this incident. She believed that demanding gratitude wasn't quite right, but after a few days, she decided to call. She called to find out how Blanca was doing, whether her fiancé had shown up, and whether he was making new attempts to get rid of his young wife. No, Juliana. No sight or sound of him. The police don't even know which way to turn to find him, her new friend replied in a quite casual tone. And you, maybe you'll come over? Please. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Right now, in fact. By the way, I have a proposal for you. Maybe you'll like it. Well, if not, then not. But I think it's still better than working with fish. And then we'll figure it out. All right? All right, I'll come, Juliana said, not very confidently. She still felt awkward about asking for any kind of gratitude, and yet her work at the market had exhausted her. There were too many problems and inconveniences. Arriving at the address, Juliana was surprised by the beautiful and wealthy house where her new friend lived. It seemed that Blanca's life was indeed a success. I wonder what she wants to offer. If it's about money, I'll refuse. But if it's about a job, then I need to think about it. Blanca greeted her very warmly, gave her a tour of the large house, showing its furnishings, not bragging, but simply acquainting. You know, I suggest you become my maid, she said. No, don't think like that. There's not that much work here. As you understand, I live alone, and there's hardly anyone to make a mess, so all the work is just dusting, and sometimes preparing something in the kitchen, washing dishes. Honestly, I don't have time. I work, and I don't really like doing all this stuff. Well, I'm not a housekeeper. And here, look, a room. You'll live here. She opened the door to a small room, which seemed absolutely luxurious to Juliana after her little house with a smoking stove and creaky floor. And I'm offering you twice the salary you're currently earning. Well, you understand, there's no reason to be offended here. So, are you in? I don't even know if I'll manage. I've never lived in such fancy houses. I don't even know how to deal with all this technology, what to cook, and how to serve. Juliana was flustered. Oh, stop it. I'm not hiring you as some sort of servant. Can't handle the technology? Oh, I assure you you'll manage. It's all very simple, just press a couple of buttons, and that's it. And cooking, serving, it's very easy. You'll do it as if I were your friend or sister. Nothing special. You'll get used to it quickly, you'll see. And if anything, you can always ask. By the way, there's already one living here. She's not home right now, she'll be back soon. She's been working for us for a long time. Her parents hired her when she was still just a girl. She's from the village. But why do you need two maids right away? Juliana was surprised. No, she's not a maid. She's more about order, not kitchen duties. There used to be another woman before her. She quit, her grandson was born, and she got tired of it. She wants to live her own life. And Dora, she's sort of a housekeeper or secretary. Let me tell you right away, she's got character, even though she'll be just slightly older than you. But, you see, she's ambitious. Don't think anything of it, she shows her character to me too. Just ignore it. You do your job, she does hers. She won't mind me being around the house? Juliana doubted again. What does she have to do with it? I'm the hostess, I'm the one hiring you, so of course she won't have any say unless she wants to wash the dishes and everything else herself. And anyway, it depends on how you present yourself. I mean, of course, no need to argue or cause scandals, but becoming friends with her is unlikely. I couldn't manage it myself, even though I've known her for a long time. Oh, you understand everything correctly. After the fish market, anything suits me. The main thing is that I suit you, Juliana finally decided. Who's us all? Just me, Juliana. I'm telling you, you don't have to bend over backward for Dorothea. She's just another hired worker like you. Maybe a bit more educated and experienced. Well, a bit more prideful too. But let her show her pride elsewhere. If something bothers you, complain to me, I'll make a remark. Well, I don't think I'll have to complain, Juliana said dubiously. And are you hiring me for long? I mean, if I don't work out, you could just fire me tomorrow. And if everything goes well? Well, if everything goes well, then everything's good. As for how long, I don't know yet. I think you probably have your own plans too. Maybe you'll want to study or find a better job. Or maybe get married. No need to look too far into the future, Blanca waved her hand. Yeah, it's easy for you not to think about the future, Juliana thought with a smile. But I have to plan everything in advance. Whatever the reason I leave here, I still need to think about where to go next. Yes, she had already decided to stay here. Well, why not spend at least a little time in a rich, well-appointed house? And with this salary, she'd earn her own place even faster. Though, she'd have to get acquainted with someone named Nastia, who, apparently, considered herself more of a mistress in the house than Blanca herself. And so the introduction took place. The housekeeper, a truly young girl, was much stricter than Blanca. She looked Juliana up and down condescendingly during their introduction, snorted something to herself, then spoke up. So, a new maid, huh? Well, what can you do, lady? Juliana was even taken aback by such a question. What do you mean, what can she do? Naturally, everything a woman should know how to do around the house. She looked at Natalia in confusion, and Natalia smiled, knowingly winked at her, and said to the housekeeper, Nastia, don't scare the girl like that. She hasn't even started working yet, and you're already with your strictness. And her name is Juliana, please remember that. I'm not scaring anyone, but I need to know how to communicate with her and what to expect from this person. By the way, my name is Sonora Carrizo, she turned to Juliana with this message. And I would ask you to address me that way. I'm only Dora to the mistress, and not always even then. Okay, said Blanca, and Juliana realized with fear that even the landlady was somewhat subdued by her housekeeper. If it weren't for her, everything would be fine. Surely there will be problems with this lady, Juliana thought, and then voiced it in conversation with Blanca. Oh, come on, I'm telling you, no problems. I'm sure you'll get along soon enough. Juliana wasn't sure about that at all. How could they get along when they look at you as if they already suspect and even accuse you of all mortal sins? But it wasn't easy to refuse or leave just like that. Juliana had already mentally settled into this house. Besides, what was she afraid of, really? Blanca hires her for work, Blanca will pay her, and this Sonora Carrizo. Who will pay attention to her? She wants to be called by her full name? Sure thing. Even Your Majesty if she wants. But Juliana wasn't going to offend herself. But, of course, Sonora Carrizo wasn't going to give up her position either, and very soon Juliana had to get acquainted with many negative traits of her character. Cleaning even the smallest room took a lot of time because the housekeeper stood nearby and constantly corrected, instructed, pointed out that Juliana was doing everything wrong, just standing there incorrectly. What does it matter, Sonora Carrizo? Juliana exclaimed in desperation. The main thing is not this, not how I stand or hold the vacuum cleaner, but the main thing is that there's order. Isn't that so? And I think I'm doing that. You know what? You can do it differently. Just because you sweep the trash under the carpet doesn't mean cleanliness will come. Where's the trash under the rug? What are you talking about? That's exactly what I'm watching out for you not to do. If I don't keep an eye on you, you'll definitely do something wrong. When you brewed coffee in the evening, you put 3 spoons in the teapot instead of 2. Why? What difference does it make? Juliana almost cried with frustration. That's exactly it, I'm talking about that. You don't care about anything. If I trust you and don't watch your every move, you'll destroy the whole house, I'm sure of it. Sometimes in the evenings, Blanca would ask Juliana how things were going, and she would invariably answer that everything was fine, everything was in order. But one day she couldn't take it anymore. It's hard for me to work with this Dorothea, to be honest. She doesn't give me any peace of mind. And the main thing is, I don't understand the essence of her complaints. I think she just doesn't like me. Oh, Juliana, sometimes I feel like she doesn't like me either. That's just the way she is. I can't fire her, and I can't even rein her in sometimes. And I can't just fire her because I didn't hire her. And why fire her? She actually helps out quite a bit. Rein her in? Probably for the same reason. I've tried more than once, but it only gets worse. And I wouldn't advise arguing with her. If you think about it, she's not such a bad person, just different. Juliana didn't say that Dorothea was bad. She just became more convinced every day that this person had some not very pleasant secrets. Juliana tried to calm herself down as best she could. She's a normal woman. We just don't like each other, so I make up all sorts of things. Maybe she thinks the same about me, that I'm this or that, so she nitpicks, because she can't say anything specific, but that's what I do. But what could Juliana do if she noticed some oddities about Dorothea? Sometimes she would talk on the phone secretly, quickly hanging up if someone was nearby. But Juliana heard snippets of phrases promising that now nothing would go wrong, everything would be fine, and we'll get what we want. What did Dora want to achieve? What did no one will suspect mean? Such conversations caused alarm. Dorothea also behaved too freely in the house. Juliana was sure the housekeeper rummaged through her things without any hesitation, and not only hers, probably Blanca's things too, trying to penetrate all aspects of their lives that way. Of course, Juliana had nothing special to hide. She was ready to tell everything about herself even without any spying. For example, in the first few days, without interrogation, she explained how she met Blanca and, unable to hold back, expressed her opinion about the act of Blanca's runaway fiancé. I never imagined that there are people so terrible. Pretended to be in love and then decided to kill poor Sonora Villalba. I really hope the police will find him and arrest him. Such actions should be punished. Maybe they'll find him, maybe not. And where would we know what will happen with them? We didn't keep a candle for them, Dorothea replied rather strangely. How would we not know? I saw with my own eyes how he pushed her into the water. Exclaimed Juliana, outraged by such words. Well, I don't think so. You saw that she was already out of the water, on the shore, Dorothea replied with inexplicable irritation. And that, you must agree, makes a difference. So whether they find him or not, I think it will be difficult to incriminate him. And our mistress just needs to choose her suitors more carefully, otherwise, next time, she'll find some luckier one, one who will carry out the plan to the end. No, I don't think that will happen. And besides, I doubt there's a real possibility of meeting another one like him, Juliana replied with feeling, becoming less and less fond of Dorothea's musings. All sorts of people exist, Dorothea shrugged. And anyway, what are you thinking about there? Go, get busy with your work and don't meddle in things that aren't your business. How does this concern us? Right, it doesn't. So stay away from all of this. Juliana never really meddled in other people's business. She just helped out when there was an opportunity. But apparently, explaining this to Dorothea was completely unrealistic. She was clearly not the helper type. Her phone conversations spoke volumes about it. She spoke clearly with someone close, maybe even with a loved one, sometimes persuading him so tenderly, but it all seemed strange. That's it, forget about it, stop worrying. So what if it didn't work out? Now everything will definitely go smoothly. Did you get what I asked for? Good. Don't forget to bring it. We'll meet next time, you'll hand it over. But, are you sure this will work? Well, okay. so that it doesn't end up like last time, because it might not be so easy to get out of it. What were these words about, and why did they inspire worry? And then Juliana heard something that really couldn't help but worry. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. This savior has imposed herself on us. Well, she behaves quietly, of course. You can't talk to her much. And she doesn't suspect anything. There's not enough brain in her head to come up with that. But still, I'm afraid she might mess up all the plans again this time. Yes, that was at least a strange conversation. It was obviously about her, about Juliana. Dorothea sometimes even called her a savior to her face, albeit with some mockery. And now she's afraid that Juliana will mess up some plans again? What plans did she mess up last time? Right, the plan to get rid of Blanca. Does Dorothea also have some strange and scary plans? And who is she discussing such topics with on the phone? One day, Juliana finally decided to ask Blanca. Does Dorothea have anyone? Is she planning to get married? It's quite strange. Young, beautiful, and surely nothing prevented her from being happy. I don't know. I don't delve into these matters, Blanca replied carelessly. Surely someone exists, but I haven't seen anyone. And it's not our business, agree. Once I asked her about it, she didn't like such questions. Well, I didn't say anything else. Don't discuss this topic with her either, she gets offended for some reason. Maybe some unhappy love? Well, few people are lucky in that regard, sighed Juliana. Well, it's good that it hasn't touched me yet. But maybe Dorothea, maybe that's why she's so picky. Oh, stop it, Juliana. Everyone just has different personalities and different destinies. I don't want to think about it. I have enough problems without that. I'm still hoping to find my so-called husband and bring him to justice myself, you know for what. And what, still no luck? What do the police say about it? Juliana asked. Nothing substantial. They say they're looking, but so far, no results from these searches. But they did find out that he seems to be in the country at least, he hasn't tried to escape abroad. That's already encouraging. He's a resourceful man, but I'm sure they'll find him. Juliana was also sure that someday this Carlos would end up in the hands of the police and face trial, but apparently it wouldn't happen as soon as she would have liked. And then one day, she involuntarily became a witness to a very strange phone conversation that Dorothea was having with her interlocutor. And it wasn't so much strange as it was genuinely frightening, because what she heard revealed a bit more than before. Yes, darling, I'm already starting. Oh, I can hardly believe that it will finally be over. Just don't worry. Everything will work out, I'm sure. Oh, enough about that case. This time there can't be any suspicions. And what about the savior? There's no need to fear her. She suspects nothing, and besides, she's afraid of me like the plague. She tries to keep her distance. And her too? Oh, no. Well, it would be worth it, of course, but two such incidents would already be too suspicious. I have something else prepared for her. Juliana froze, leaning against the wall. What was this villain planning? And isn't Carlos her accomplice? And Dorothea continued to share her plans, unaware that she was being eavesdropped on. I'll start today. What are we waiting for? Just make sure you don't get caught, please, and be careful, they're still looking for you. And today I'll treat our beauty to some delicious coffee, and tomorrow we'll celebrate our victory. Juliana covered her mouth with her hand. Her legs weakened, a frightened cry of indignation was about to burst out. So, Dorothea wants to poison the mistress. And she's probably in cahoots with that Carlos, Blanca's former fiancé, and even now, her husband. And yet they decided to carry out the plan to the end. Oh, what a stroke of luck that she overheard this conversation and now she can prevent this horror. Fortunately, Dorothea didn't suspect it, but still, she was cunning and malicious. Suspecting something, she tried to protect herself as best she could. She sent Juliana to the store for some groceries just at the time when Blanca was supposed to return home. Maybe we should go tomorrow? Juliana asked. Shopping is better done in the morning. Are you going to teach me when it's best to do things? I said go now, and that means now. But Blanca will come now. We'll have to feed her dinner. And anyway, I might be needed for something else. Not Blanca, Senora Villalba. How many times do I have to repeat? You seem to be forgetting things often, dear. Right now, I need you to go to the store, and there's no need to feed her dinner. She can eat by herself, and I can serve her. That's what Juliana feared most of all. Apparently, Dorotea wanted to serve this delicious coffee and poison Blanca without any witnesses, but Juliana didn't argue. She took her bag and hurried to the store, hoping to return before it was too late. And she did. When she came back, Blanca, cheerful and satisfied, was already finishing her dinner. Why did you go to the store so late, Juliana? She asked. Senora Carrizo ordered it. How was your day? I see everything's fine. Maybe there's some good news? Juliana called news of Anatolia's search good, but this time Blanca had nothing to cheer her up. No. Luck is only on my side at work, and as for the matter you're talking about, there's no news. But I hope the ice will soon break. It will definitely break, Dorotea said cheerfully, with complete confidence. Everything always turns out best for you. And she placed a beautiful cup in front of Blanca. Here's your coffee. I added some lemon zest. It's excellent for relaxation, especially since you've been so tense lately. Indeed, no wonder, Blanca replied, taking the cup and sniffing it. It does have an interesting smell. She was about to take the first sip when Juliana, rushing over, snatched the cup from her hands and set it aside. Don't drink it, please. I'm sure they're trying to poison you. Have you gone mad? The housekeeper exclaimed. I told you, she's not normal. It's you who's not normal. I overheard your phone conversation. Blanca, listen to me. And she, choking back her words, recounted to the housekeeper what she had managed to hear. I'm sure she's somehow connected to your Carlos. She needs to be questioned. We need to go to the police urgently, and the coffee needs to be analyzed to find out what she put in it. Blanca exchanged a puzzled look between the two girls. I don't understand anything. Have you both gone crazy? Dora, what is she talking about? She's saying that I'm a murderer and involved with a murderer, when in fact she was the one planning to poison you. Shameless, envious girl. She decided to poison both of us to steal everything she could and run away. I told you, don't bring any homeless people into the house, and you. I knew your mother, I owe everything to your parents, and I want you dead. No, that's just unthinkable. Dorotea sat at the table, covering her face with her hands, and burst into tears. Blancucha, I swear I'm not lying. I heard that conversation, and I'm sure, Juliana tried to explain, but Blanca interrupted her. Stop it. I can't believe what you're saying. I've known Nastia for many years, and I'm sure she didn't intend anything bad, let alone conspire with Carlos. He's not in town, the police said so. And even if he were, she saw Anatoly, knew him, but they never had any business together. I don't know what conversation you heard. She didn't hear anything, Dorotea yelled. She's lying, isn't it obvious? She's lying. Search her yourself. She surely has some poison in her pocket. I saw her hiding something. Where did she hide it? In her pocket? Juliana, please show me, Blanca asked. What are you doing? Juliana reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a vial. I don't know what this is. I didn't put it there. There, you see, Dorotea rejoiced. She couldn't even hide the poison properly, whether it was for you or for me. She thought we were fools, believing everything. This isn't mine. I don't know where it came from, Juliana said, bewildered. But I know perfectly well. She conspired with someone. Although how can we know how she lived before? Maybe she's already poisoned a bunch of people and you brought her into the house, Dora speculated. Yes, Juliana, this is too much, Dora said. I appreciate that you saved me once, but what you're doing now, it's terribly awful. We need to call the police. Dorothea shouted. Yes, let's call the police, Juliana agreed. Yes, let her be jailed, Dora said, but without much conviction. Apparently, she realized that a police investigation wasn't in her best interest. And Blanca wasn't in the mood for it either. Enough of this police for me. They're no use, just trouble. I don't want any more of it, I'm done. She grabbed the suspicious coffee cup and threw it into the sink. Let's finish this whole story here. Juliana, do you understand, right? You can't stay in this house anymore. I don't trust you. Yes, you saved me, but it turns out it was to ruin me later, or at least to cause me serious harm, finding out that I'm wealthy. Senora Villalba, how can you believe her? Juliana cried. It's very simple, I can believe her. And I would have believed you with pleasure, but now you can go back to your village. And what will happen next, I don't know and don't want to know. After what happened, I don't think I'll ever trust anyone again. Dora, I beg you, let's forget this story. Juliana, pack up and go. Dora will settle with you now. Juliana understood that the housekeeper had outplayed her. She couldn't argue and prove her innocence, so she went to pack her things to leave this house. She hadn't worked here for long, and now she had to leave with such disgrace. But she didn't want to go back to the village. After living in a wealthy house with all the conveniences, even thinking about that little house was scary. Especially since summer was ending, soon the rainy autumn would start, and then the cold winter. Could she survive the winter in that house? Maybe she should look for a room in the city while she still had some money left, and then... Well, we'll see. And find some other job, cleaner and better paid than this miserable market. But what kind of job? Maybe they would take her as a maid? Juliana wandered aimlessly through the city, not knowing what to do next. She looked at the people bustling around. Each of them was preoccupied with their own problems. Everyone was rushing somewhere, everyone had their own concerns, but in the evening they would return home to their cozy apartments, to their loved ones, and she had nowhere to return. No one was waiting for her. Suddenly one of the faces distracted her from her sad thoughts. She didn't even understand what drew her to this man, seemingly completely unfamiliar, but then she realized he wasn't that unfamiliar at all. She remembered this face perfectly, it was etched into her memories. Carlos. Yes, he tried to change his appearance, wore a wig, changed something in his face, but that look. No, she couldn't be mistaken. It was undoubtedly him. Although Juliana had seen him for no more than an hour, she couldn't forget him. What the police couldn't figure out about this man wasn't surprising. They knew him from photographs, but photos don't capture that predatory yet fearful look. Juliana wanted to rush to him, grab his hand, demand that he go to the police with her, but she knew perfectly well she couldn't handle the man. He would just push her away, call her crazy too, and that would be the end of it. So she followed him, persistently scanning the crowd for the policeman along the way. After all, there are people in uniform walking the streets. But why don't they show up when they're needed? Suddenly, as if on cue, a policeman appeared. A young, interesting man, possibly in a hurry on some official business, but tracking down a fugitive criminal was also his duty. Officer, she rushed to the patrolman. Please, help. This man, she pointed to the departing Anatoly, is wanted for attempted murder. He needs to be detained. The policeman didn't argue with her or ask unnecessary questions, but followed Carlos. Sir, wait, he called out. Please, show your ID. Carlos was about to run, but realizing it wasn't so easy, he turned around and said eagerly, Yes, right now, just a minute. And when the patrolman approached him, with a strong shove, he sent the young man straight under a passing car, and then he himself started running. But he didn't get far. Bystanders who saw this horrible scene caught him. Juliana froze in horror. Another victim. Yes, now Anatoly couldn't escape punishment. Even if they couldn't prove he tried to kill his young wife, they definitely wouldn't forgive him for attempting to kill a policeman. However, the young man was still alive, though seriously injured, and Juliana was very interested in his fate. She approached the paramedic. "Tell me, will he live?" "He'll live, but..." "The injury is quite serious," the doctor said anxiously. The young policeman was carefully loaded into the ambulance. He was conscious, but he looked strangely and muttered, "I can't feel my legs. Is my spine broken?" "Calm down," said the doctor. "You need to undergo examinations first. Maybe it's not all that bad." Another car pulled up, this time for Carlos. "Scoundrel!" Juliana shouted at him. She wanted to go to the hospital with the injured man, but she was stopped. "Where are you going, miss? You need to give your statement." "Yes, of course. I saw him trying to kill his fiancée, or now his wife, Sonora Villalba, and now the policeman." "We'll deal with all of this," they replied. She had to go to the police station to give her statement. Carlos didn't resist for long. After all, the evidence was too overwhelming. He was forced to confess that he wanted to kill his wife and take her money. He also confessed to conspiring with Dorothea for the same purpose. Yes, maybe we couldn't get our hands on the inheritance rights, but Dora knew perfectly well where Blanca's money and valuables were hidden. That would have been enough for us. We would have fled, and no one would have found us, he recounted. Anastasia and Blanca were brought to the police station. The housekeeper was furious. She was sure everything would go smoothly, and it was all the fault of the savior. It turns out they should have gotten rid of Juliana first and foremost, preferably on the very first day she appeared in their house. Dorothea was so furious that she shouted all this right at the police officers. "You scoundrel, why did you meddle in what's not your business? I hate you. Everything was planned out perfectly, but no, you just had to show up. She should be the one behind bars, not me," Sonora Carrizo cried out angrily. Blanca was stunned by what was happening, as she had put so much trust in her family's housekeeper. When they, along with Juliana, finished giving their statements and left the department, she said, "Yes, Juliana, you've saved me once again, and I'm sorry. I'm trusting all the wrong people again. How foolish of me." "Stop it, please," Juliana hugged her. "Yes, you're trusting, but that's only because you're incapable of any malice yourself. And I'm not angry with you at all. Even when you believed Dorothea over me, I wasn't upset. I understood you perfectly. You just couldn't believe that such a person, whom you've known for so long, could be capable of such treachery. Come back to me, please. I can't do without you. I'll probably end up in some trouble again, mark my words," Blanca smiled through her tears. "Of course, I'll be by your side, since apparently my fate is to save you," Juliana reassured her. "But you know, I'm very worried about the fate of that policeman who was almost killed by Carlos. He sustained very serious injuries. I want to go to the hospital, find out his condition." "Oh, you're such a kind soul," Blanca sighed. "Let's go together. Maybe some help is needed, and I might not be superfluous either." Indeed, the policeman was in very bad shape. It's hard to say anything definite at the moment, but judging by everything, he suffered a serious spinal injury. Moreover, he lost a lot of blood, and a rare blood type is needed. This creates certain difficulties, the doctor said. His mother has already arrived, but her blood type doesn't match. "What type is needed?" Blanca asked and, upon finding out, was delighted. "I have that type. I can be a donor, and I'm perfectly healthy. You don't even need to examine me." "Are you a relative?" the doctor asked, scrutinizing the girl closely. "No, not a relative. Well, it just happened that way. I have the same blood type that's needed, and I've always been told I'm a rare donor. Although it all came to light when I had complications related to the female part, she darkened, apparently not wanting to reveal all her secrets. But overall, I'm mostly healthy. Well, that's good, said the doctor. Blanca donated blood, the transfusion was done, and the injured man was saved. Sonora Morales, the policeman's mother, tearfully thanked the girl upon learning that Blanca had become the donor. What are you saying? Blanca, pale and somewhat weakened after the procedure, tried to reassure her. I'm very glad I could help, especially since he suffered to some extent because of me. The doctor took Sonora Morales aside to talk to her, apparently about her son's condition. Juliana felt somewhat relieved, hoping that the young man would still recover, and went home with Blanca. I'm really worried about Victor. A spinal injury is serious, the girl fretted. And it's just miraculous that your blood was such a perfect match. Well, I guess there must be positive aspects to everything. Don't worry, we won't leave him, Blanca promised. We'll definitely visit him, find out how he's doing. Expensive medication might be needed, or maybe even surgery, but don't doubt it, I'll cover everything. And cover it she did. Victor indeed needed expensive spinal intervention. Blanca footed the bill. After the surgery, they came together to visit the young man. In the reception area, they were met by Sonora Morales. She looked at Blanca with frightened, tearful eyes. Has something happened to Victor? Blanca exclaimed in alarm. No, my dears, not with Victor, Sonora Morales replied with effort and nodded to the doctor to explain. You see, we found out, the doctor said, that you and Victor are biological siblings. I suspected it right away, talked to his mother, and she said that indeed you and Victor are twins. We did a DNA test, and everything was confirmed. How is that possible? My parents, Blanca began, bewildered. You see, Sonora Morales said, it's very difficult to explain, but in fact, I gave birth to you. Yes, you and Victor were twins, but when you were born, a childless couple approached me, offering to take one of the babies. They really wanted a girl, so I gave you to them. I was living without a husband, very poorly, and they offered good money not just up front, but also to keep paying me so I could raise the boy. Well, I agreed. I understand this all sounds terrible, but not entirely, perhaps, terrible, Blanca said. No, I understand everything, and I probably don't feel offended. Well, what can you do? It is what it is. Let's forget about it. Oh, how can one forget such a thing? I abandoned my own child, Sonora Morales cried again. No, what are you saying? On the other hand, you gave me the opportunity to live in a good environment, and also to your son, my brother, too. During Victor's recovery, Juliana stayed by his side. They grew very close, and after his discharge, almost fully recovered, he asked her out on a real date. Half a year later, they got married. Blanca wasn't just a friend, she was family, as she was Victor's sister. When Juliana became pregnant, Blanca sadly told her, You know, Juliana, I have another problem, I'll never have children. The doctors told me long ago. It's an illness that makes pregnancy impossible. How terrible. Sympathized Juliana. Well, at least you'll be the godmother of our little one, both an aunt and a godmother. I hope so, Blanca smiled. Juliana's pregnancy was difficult. She was hospitalized several times, and during one of her admissions, one of the nurses let slip something. The young people nowadays are so weak. How was it before? Got pregnant, went to the hospital, and gave birth. But now? We had a case recently. Though there it's understandable. A woman gave birth to triplets right away. She suffered throughout her pregnancy. And when she gave birth, she died. Her family is poor. As soon as her husband found out, he disappeared, who knows where. And now the children are in the orphanage. Is that fair? Upon hearing this, Juliana told Blanca. Imagine, newborns, 2 boys and a girl, and suddenly orphans. Maybe you could take them? And you'd have an instant large family. Interesting, Blanca thought. Would they allow me? Why not? I think they definitely would. Well, your circumstances permit it. Blanca began the process of adopting the 3 orphan children, and she was granted permission to become their mother. Soon, Juliana gave birth to a girl, and they began raising their little ones, almost of the same age. Blanca was happy, feeling like a mother, and soon met a man who agreed to become a father to her children and her husband. He was just an ordinary person, unrelated to business or wealth, but that's precisely what appealed to Blanca. "Oh, I've had enough of those rich folks striving for even more wealth," she said. "With Ernesto, maybe there's not an excess of money, but he loves me and loves our children, and that's much more important."